Sarah, good morning. The Republicans are in their retreat. I was invited to go down there by chairwoman of the conference, Elise Stefanik, but I'm not. I'm going back to D.C. tomorrow, so it didn't work. I am curious. Do you think we're going to have a government shutdown on the second tranche of appropriation bills, the first tranche, the minibus, passed this week?
It's interesting. The deadline is only about a week away, and Republicans have had trouble getting spending bills over the finish line before. Their numbers are thinning out, but you don't really hear a level of panic that matches how close the deadline is right now. I think there's still confidence that it can get over the finish line. Ukraine hawks are kind of hopeful about the separate issue of that funding moving along. Mike Johnson, the speaker, has said some encouraging things about that. The Department of Homeland Security bill appears to be the one that is still the trickiest for Republicans, but it does appear that despite that looming deadline a week or so away, there's still some confidence that we'll avoid a shutdown.
I hope so. We don't need that right now. We've got the issue set, we've got the candidate set, and it's going to go forward. Now, Sarah, I'm stunned and appalled by Chuck Schumer yesterday, and not this is not partisan. We have never had a majority leader of the Senate call for regime change in an ally that's democratically elected. Has there been so much blowback that it surprised Chuck Schumer?
The blowback has been pretty furious, and it's not just from Republicans. I mean, obviously, Republicans were furious by this. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell put out a statement almost immediately calling this speech by Schumer grotesque. But we've also seen Democrats say that this was not appropriate. To call for a regime change in an ally is a huge line that Schumer stepped across with that speech. So you had uh, Democrats, including Senator Tim Kaine, Senator Richard Blumenthal, Senator John Fetterman, who has been a pretty staunch supporter of Israel, saying that this was not an appropriate move by Schumer. But I think it does indicate where the Democratic Party is headed, worried about its prospects in November with young voters who are prioritizing Palestinians and in some cases Hamas over Israel.
Sarah, let me give you some facts. In 2000, Al Gore got 79% of the Jewish American vote, 79%. In 2004, John Kerry lost a little bit. He got 76% of the Jewish American vote. It went back up in 2008 for President Obama. He got 78% of the Jewish vote first time around. And then in 2012, it dropped by almost 10 points to 69% for the President Obama's reelect. In 2016, Hillary Clinton got 71%, so she improved a little bit because she's actually a Zionist. She improved a little bit. But Joe Biden dropped to the all-time low in modern times to 68% of the Jewish American vote. I think it's going to go lower. And I don't know if the Democrats realize this. Their danger isn't from Muslim Americans or Arab Americans. It's Jewish Americans saying, hey, wait a minute. This is a free, democratically elected ally, and you're losing the war, Joe. Have they talked about that to you?
No, not at all. I think the White House is focused solely on the left flank of its party. It's not just the Muslim Americans who are potentially poised to deliver Biden some kind of electoral backlash to the handling of this war. It's also the white, very, very progressive voters who are also siding with the Palestinians in this conflict. The young progressives, especially, really view this conflict through a sort of critical race theory lens that doesn't really allow them to see any nuance in the situation. And they want to see Biden go much further to the left on this, much harder against Israel than he already has. I think that explains why we've seen such a shift in just a few months from the strength in that partnership that Joe Biden showed in his speech immediately after October 7th to today, when you're seeing condemnation of Israel from Democratic leaders and Joe Biden promising all sorts of ceasefires and support for people in Gaza ahead of key primaries, and when his election is on the line.
Sarah, two of the critical swing states are Pennsylvania and Michigan. And they have significant Jewish American populations in Philly and Pittsburgh, and also in Michigan outside of Detroit, significant Jewish American populations. The other swing states, maybe not as much in Wisconsin, although I don't know Milwaukee well enough to say one way or the other. Georgia, I doubt it, but there might be some. But really, he cannot alienate the Jewish American vote. And Joe Biden is doing that. Accusing Israel of manipulating humanitarian aid for political gain is a slander. And Chuck Schumer trying to overthrow Benjamin Netanyahu is unprecedented. I really don't know. I think they're just dumb.
I think that they are counting on a campaign that paints Donald Trump as far too toxic for any Jewish American to vote for. I mean, they are not making these decisions with the Jewish American vote in mind, clearly, because everything that they are doing is at the current moment being marketed to the far left of their party. And they are worried that the coalition they had in 2020 won't be able to be kept together without those progressive voters.